Good morning, good morning, good morning. The Clearing, an excerpt from Toni Morrison's Beloved. After situating herself on a huge flat-sided rock, baby Suggs bowed her head and prayed silently. The company watched her from the trees. They knew she was ready when she put down her stick. And then she shouted, "Let the children come!" And they ran from the trees toward her. "Let your mothers hear you laugh," she told them. And the woods rang. The adults looked on and could not help smiling. Then, "Let the grown men come," she shouted. They stepped out one by one from among the ringing trees. "Let your wives and your children see you dance," she told them, and the ground life shuddered under their feet. Finally, she called the women to her. "Cry," she told them, "for the living and for the dead, just cry." And without covering their eyes, the women let loose. It started that way, laughing children, dancing men, crying women, and then it got all mixed up. Women started crying and danced, men sat down and cried, children danced, women laughed, children cried until exhausted and writhing. All and each just lay about the clearing, damp and gasping in breath. In the silence that followed, baby Suggs, holy, offered up to them her great big heart. See, she did not tell them to clean up their lives and go and sin no more. She did not tell them they were blessed of the earth, its inheriting meek or its glory bound pure. She told them the only grace they could have was the grace they could imagine. That if they could not see it, they could not have it. Here, she said, in this place, we flesh that weeps, laughs, flesh that dances on bare feet in grass, love it hard.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Terry Donaldson. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Huntington's virtual Sunday service. It is good to be together. This morning's guest speaker is QuianaDenae Perkins, whom some of you may recall from our 8th Principal Speaker Series. She is a first-year seminarian at Starr King School for the Ministry and a UU ministerial aspirant. Most recently, she served First UU Congregation of Ann Arbor in a coordinator role. She is the mother of 2 busy teens. She loves nature walks and bird watching. QuianaDenae's ministry centers around pastoral care, activism, and collective liberation. Please join me in giving her a warm welcome this morning. We are streaming live on Zoom and Facebook this morning. I'd like to extend a special welcome today to visitors who may be joining our service for the first time, as well as any newcomers who are returning. If you are new to our congregation and want to speak with someone to learn more about us, please contact our office at office@uufh.org. We'll put this information in the chat for those of you tuning in on Zoom. As always, even though our tech team behind the scenes is amazing, sometimes things happen, so please be patient with any technical mishaps. And now we have a few brief announcements. I'll begin with an excerpt from my president's message, which you can find in full on our website in News and Announcements and in this week's flash. You will understand my excitement about the fresh start we are embarking upon if you attended last Sunday's service with Reverend Deborah Hafner, our new transitions minister. If you were unable to attend the service, I recommend that you check it out on Facebook. It is available at this time. Reverend Deborah reminded us that though we are facing challenges with the pandemic and our transition, we are not alone. We come to the fellowship each week to receive comfort, kindness, and community so that we may do this work together. Many others face and overcome challenges such as these, and so will we. And in the process of great change, like the butterfly in the cocoon, there is the opportunity for great beauty and delight to arise out of it. I invite you to join us as we begin in earnest to move forward in shared ministry with Reverend Deborah. In her words, it is a time for us to love the questions and explore ourselves as members and as a congregation here at UUFH. And now we have an opportunity to meet our new minister. Reverend Deborah is offering 2 dates to join her on Zoom. You can join her for lunch on Friday, February 25th at noon, or for dessert on Tuesday, March 1st at 7:30 p.m. You can find information about signing up on our website under News and Announcements and in this week's flash. We hope to hear from you. And finally, at this time each year, the Investment Committee invites committees and/or individual members to make proposals for funding. Proposals will be funded through our endowment and should be for projects or efforts not covered in our fiscal operating budget. Proposals need to be received by the Investment Committee no later than March 1st, and the Investment Committee will make recommendations to the board no later than March 31st. Please see our website or the flash for details. And now I invite you to settle into your bodies and quiet your minds as we breathe deeply together and settle into our time of worship. Please join me in saying our mission statement. The words will be on the screen. In religious community, we nurture our individual spirits through caring for one another and helping to heal the world. And now we'll hear our affirmation, common ground. The words will be on the screen.
On different roads we travel here to meet as one on common ground, to seek the truth with open minds, with loving hearts and helping hands.
I invite you to light your chalices at home as you have them, while I read our chalice lighting. We Gather as Many Drops by Leslie Takahashi. We gather as many drops, each winding our own path down life's surfaces and ruts. Here we pool together as a single body, flowing together for a time. Together we are a stream, and at times even a river. For with our shared force, we can travel toward oceans of meaning and seas of connection. Our story for all ages this morning is entitled Rivers by Christopher Buse. Once upon a time, there were 2 rivers flowing side by side. Both rivers liked to argue about who was the best. The water in my river is better than the water in your river, said one. No, the water in my river is better than the water in your river, said the other. The two rivers would flow along all day, arguing about which river was the best. Both were quite sure they were the greatest. Doesn't my water make a joyful sound as it runs over the smooth, polished pebbles on my bottom? And look at the way the sun reflects off the ripples and eddies that form around the granite boulders at my edge. These things are so beautiful. Surely I am the best river, said the first. The other river replied, but look at all the fish that swim in my clear, cool water. And have you heard the frogs singing at night? They live in the reeds and lilies that grow at my banks. I am home to so many wonderful creatures. Surely I must be the very best river. The two continued to argue until one day something strange and unexpected happened. The rivers rounded a bend, slid down a small falls, and suddenly saw that they were flowing towards something much bigger and greater than themselves. Up ahead were big crashing waves and water everywhere for as far as they could see. They continued to rush faster and faster until the water from both rivers churned together into the vast and enormous ocean. Then a sound came from the sky. It came from a cloud that chuckled for a moment and then said, "Now you see how foolish you have been, arguing about who is the best. There is no highest or lowest. There is no greatest or least. All things are one, and all are joined together like rivers in the sea." I invite us all to sing Spirit of Life. Following the song, we'll enter into a time of silence and then prayer. As you participate at home, remember that it's not about the perfection of silence, but the intention. Join with me in singing now.
Sing in my
Among the Potawatomi people, women are the keepers of water. We carry the sacred water to ceremonies and act on its behalf. Women have a natural bond with water because we are both life bearers. My sister said, we carry our babies in internal ponds and they come forth into the world on a wave of water. It is our responsibility to safeguard the water for all relations. Being a good caregiver includes caretaking the water.
This is the time in our service when we hold all those tender personal concerns which are close to our hearts this day. I invite you now to speak aloud the names of any you would like to lift up into the care of this community. You may put them in the chat to be read. Or simply hold them in your heart in silence. Margaret and Dan, Mary Monnier, Ruth Ann, Tom, Daniel, Genevieve, Becky, Mark and Dottie, Anne Hanley, the family of Mindy Sawyer Yates, Sam and Mary, Sean, Grace, Tessie, Maggie, Roz, Elliot, Bill, Mikal, J.F. Shaw, Julia and Isaac Dinsmore. Happy to share a joy from David and Linda, our son's graduation from Suffolk County Community College with an associate's degree. Congratulations. Adina, Little Jack, Evelina Kahn, dear friend Eileen, and for these names and all the names written silently on the tablets of our hearts, we pray. Our split plate for the month of February is the Huntington branch of the NAACP. The vision of the NAACP is to ensure a society in which all individuals have equal rights without discrimination based on race. Founded in 1909, the NAACP is the nation's oldest and largest civil rights organization. From the ballot box to the classroom, the thousands of dedicated workers, organizers, leaders, and members who make up the NAACP continue to fight for social justice for all Americans. The Huntington branch works with the state and national NAACP office to strengthen our commitment to supporting equality and justice in the Huntington community. You can send a check to the office or donate through the website as seen on your screen. You can also donate through the Vanco mobile app, which can be found on the App Store or Google Play. Thank you for being as generous as you are able.
These are the words of a song by a beautiful artist named Emile Sandi. We've adapted them for licensing purposes. If you are looking for the big adventure and gold, it is all that is on your mind. If you want someone to take your picture, then I won't waste your time. If all you want is answers to your questions and you can't seem to find love for the right direction, darling, look for me. See, I can make the load much lighter. I just need you to come find me. See, maybe I'm too quiet for you. You've probably never noticed me. But if you're too big to follow rivers, how are you ever gonna find the sea? Follow me, I'll be your river, river. I'll do the running for you. Follow me, I'll be your river, river. I'll move the mountains for you. Follow me, I'll be your river, river. I'll keep you flowing. Follow me.
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water, when God's gonna trouble the water. Come on and wade in the water, you gotta wade. All dressed up in white, God's gonna trouble the water. You know they must be the children of the Israelites. God's gonna trouble the water. Well, now you wanna wait in the water. The water. See those children dressed in black. God's gonna trouble the water. You know, they come a long way, ain't turning back. God's gonna trouble the water.
Children, they're dressed up in blue. You know my God's gonna trouble the water. I see it looks like my people, they're coming on through. Well, my God's gonna trouble the water.
Well, everybody just wait in the water. Trouble the water. See those children dressed in red. My God, He's gonna trouble the water. You know it must be the children that Moses led. My God, He's gonna trouble the water. All dressed in green, God's gonna trouble the water. You know they're moving down to that Jordan stream. Well, God's gonna trouble the water. Come on, down in the water.
the water. Well, my God's gonna trouble the water. I know my God's gonna trouble the water. My God's gonna trouble. Well, my God's gonna trouble the water.
God is gonna trouble the water.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I want to thank this beautiful, amazing community for welcoming me back one more time. Before we get started, I need to call my comrades, elders, and ancestors into this space, making it holy, making it a temporary home. As we get started, I want to remind you of the words that I shared with your community in advance of this reflection. Words that I will just say make any copy editor or someone who loves English a little nervous, but it was very intentional. But I reshare those words so that we can, when you hear them again during the reflection, they'll be easy to distinguish. Take me to the river. I came here by way of water, and you did too. At some point, I moved away, and then now as I grow into wisdom, I find myself coming back to a new river with a new me. Come learn how I am making my way back to the river. Now that we are all settled in, let us begin. 1, I came here by way of water. You did too. I don't remember being in my mother's womb. I wonder if anyone remembers that sacred time, but I stopped short of a Google search because something tells me I will fall down a very deep internet conspiracy rabbit hole. So for my version of events, we don't remember. That means I get to play in the idea of what if. What was it like to be waterside? What was it like to be a mer person? What was here before now? I assumed that there was peace in the staying and the pulling of going, until that is, going was easier than staying. And then without preamble, we know the water is no longer home. We come into the light. We come land side. The first time we see, the first time we are seen, the first time our skin is touched, the first time we push air through our lungs, starting a whole new cycle of life. 2, at some point I moved away, and then now as I grow into wisdom, I find myself coming back. I recall the first time I attended a UU church. It was in Minneapolis in 2000. I worked for the summer youth program, but I was interested in understanding what this UU thing was. That first Sunday, I was nervous at best. I was guarded and stayed back. Being a Black person in a predominantly white space comes with its own protective tasks. And when you add in the complexity of church, attending required that I was both present to my own faith experience and on defense for the foolishness that we now call micro and macroaggressions. See, my experience of racism is older than our beautiful, nuanced language we have generated to talk about racism. I was there as a visitor. That was my name tag. I was a visitoria, if you will. I did not plan to stay or to get comfortable or to be known, but I did. I went back many times. In fact, when I moved from Minnesota to Michigan, I found the local UU church and I made it my faith home. The first time I saw was seen. The first time my spiritual heart felt tended. The first time I was spiritually vulnerable, starting a whole new cycle of life. 3, to a new river with a new me, I am making my way back to the river. Every waterway starts with a small drop of water. The Indigo Girls will teach you that the Mississippi starts in Minnesota at a place that you can walk with 5 steps down. It's really Itasca State Park. It is a crack in the land, an urgency racing from one unknown toward the unknowable, carving a path, befriending roots, smoothing rocks along the way, creating banks and shorelines, curving island masses, adapting as it goes, unafraid of sharp turns, hidden underground routes, or to drop into cascading falls. The trickle becomes the creek, which gathers into a pond, which, if you think about it, is a type of rest. A pond that wakes from early spring thaw, forging on to become a stream, which winds into a lake, which is another kind of rest, in preparation for the final rush to the sea. The first time we see something greater than ourselves, the first time we experience the power of collective liberation, the first time we are beloved community, starting a whole new cycle of life. Friends, I cannot speak for you, but for me, March 13th, 2020 is when COVID got real. The CDC information came in slow warnings and waves until it crested into a global pandemic. The whole world shifted, and I, like many of you, found myself in a frozen lake of feelings, experiencing emotional and spiritual paralysis. What was happening? What were we supposed to do? So much has happened in such a short amount of time. As we round into the third march of COVID, 2020, 2021, and 2022, and I'm saying those out loud for my own grounding. I find myself coming back to a new river with a new me. I am wondering what is on the other side of a global pandemic. Who will I be? How do I, in the container I call myself, which is a complex configuration of tributaries that have joined to be one, what is my next? As a ministerial aspirant in the Unitarian Universalist faith, I am asking, who will we be? Who will we be? How do we, in this container we call Unitarian Universalist faith, which is rooted in several principles, moving toward 8 in a rush that rivals Niagara Falls, how do we practice spiritual vulnerability? How do we create a narrative of safety and thriving in a pandemic and late stage capitalism and a culture that thrives off patriarchy, white supremacy, and religious nationalism? How do we move past fear? How do we recenter covenant and connection? And my heart responds. What if radical welcome, stewardship, and belonging were our compass rose headings? What if we need all 3 of those to be an integral part of how we start a new cycle of life? Follow me, I'll be your river, I'll do the running for you. Follow me, rivers. 1, radical welcome. Such a heavy, nuanced term that we love in UU. We use it like it's common language, but the truth is radical welcome is an emerging word and way of being. I won't hold us to a hard definition, but I will offer some very consistent themes. Radical welcome seems to be a mixture of spiritual hospitality, intentional connection, and centering. Now note, it could be decentering or recentering depending on where you are in the equation, with the goal of membership, with the goal of collective wholeness. Friends, radical welcome is not a call to assimilate or be incorporated. It is a call to incarnate, to become fully immersed. It is not an invitation to be in shared space. The door is open, you can come in. Or a call to include those who are willing to be in your shared space. I left the door open and I'm glad you came in. No, friends, no, 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 no. Radical welcome is a demand that we allow the new energy to be incorporated and transformational. I was so glad that we built this door, and we have no fear to build it again and again and again for all who wish to enter. Follow me. 2, stewardship. I used to think that stewardship was a fancy way to say money. I thought it was passing the hat and annual giving done by members. I know that churches need money, but money was not my primary ministry, so I didn't pay attention. That was until someone suggested we have a volunteer drive during our stewardship campaign. This confused me, so I decided this one was safe for a Google search. I found this definition of stewardship: the office, duties, and obligation of a steward, the conducting, supervising, or managing of something, especially the careful and responsible management of something entrusted to one's care. Woo! This made me pause. This definition had nothing to do with money, and I was drawn to the intense action words like duty and obligation. And I could see how volunteering is a type of stewardship. I would even call it an equity stewardship. And because I'm making up terms, I will loosely define that as the work, labor, time, and non-monetary contributions that sustain a community. I think that you have to have both financial and equity stewardship that work in concert, ebbing and flowing in respect with each other. I want to be super clear. We need money. Please, we need your money. Give as you are able. And do so knowing that on the other end of your contribution, that there is somebody doing the required equity stewardship of sorting, accounting, documenting, and making decisions on how that money is spent, saved, and managed. It is a both and equation. Do you recall the first time you entered a UU church? What stuck with you from that first visit? What made you come back? How did you shift from VISTOR into a regular? Were there behaviors, having a preferred spot to sit or a favorite coffee cup? What made you ask, could this be my faith home? What made your response yes? Reflect on your community and ask, how are you stewarding the building, the connections, the relationships with staff, ministers, non-paid super volunteers, your fellow attendees? How are you carefully and responsibly managing the resources that have been entrusted to you? Follow me, I'll be a river, I'll do the running for you. 3, belonging. When they were younger, I asked my children if they were Black, and they would say yes. Then as time went on, I asked, how do you know you're Black? We spent some time exploring race, and they were able to say, I know I'm Black because you're my mom. I know because the color of my skin and the texture of my hair. And as they get older, 14 and 11, we talk about what it means to be Black in very tender, nuanced ways. How to plan for a day at the beauty shop, how to arrive at the barber shop when they open to avoid the line, how not to get killed at a traffic stop, in the neighborhood, in the park, at the bodega, or in your bed on a no-knock warrant at the wrong address. As a Black mom, I must teach my kids all and both. As a parent, I must create a narrative of safety and thriving in a pandemic, in late stage capitalism, in a culture that thrives in patriarchy, white supremacy, and religious nationalism. And that starts by making sure they know what it means to be Black, to know the edge of where they start and stop, to know when the water is no longer safe, so they know when to seek safety on the shore. Think about your community. How do you know you are a UU? How do you know that these are your people? When you hear the words of the chalice lighting, is that your chalice lighting? Is it their chalice lighting? Or is it our chalice lighting? What are your indicators of belonging? Stay with me. We are rounding the river bend, friends. See, I think our desire to be in fellowship can feel like an urgency, racing from the unknown to the unknowable. And finding our path may look like staying to help with chairs or volunteer note taker at a meeting. Carving out a way may consist of co-leading a new team or leading a local march for reproductive rights. We have to be ready to adapt, unafraid of sharp turns, hidden underground routes, or to drop into cascading falls. In this way, belonging is a form of bravery. I'll be a river. We are arriving at a new river. What if UU congregations were radically welcoming? Each person who comes is fully supported to become. What if we had vibrant stewardship, both financial and equity? What if each person shared their divine gifts in service of the whole? What if the goal was belonging, not membership, not attendance, but to hold people in the tendermost place of longing? I came here by way of water, and you did too, friend. And as I grow into my wisdom, I find myself coming back to a new river with a new me. I am making my way back to the river. The first time we see, we're seen. The first time our skin is touched, the first time air pushes through our lungs. My spiritual heart felt tended. I was spiritually vulnerable. There is something greater than ourselves. It is collective liberation. And when it comes, we are beloved community. Friends, I think this is how we get to the sea. This is how we start a whole new cycle of life. Ashe and amen.
Thank you. Thank you, QuianaDenae, for a rich moment this morning. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Excerpts from collaborations by Alexis Pauline Gumbs. Out here in the open ocean, mothering is an emergent strategy. Consider the white-bellied, short-snouted dolphins who travel in groups of hundreds, sometimes thousands. Lesson 1, roll deep. And welcome several other species of dolphins and whales to swim and eat in community. Lesson 2, better together. Though they swim across the entire planet, no scientist, or no one willing to tell a Western scientist, saw one alive until 1971. The fact, it seems, there was a coordinated effort or movement to be recognized because there were several different first sightings of the species on different parts of the planet, all somehow in 1971. Lesson 3, we can be seen on our own terms. The only requirements to be a part of this massive oceanic family are that you gotta be willing to dive deep because they eat 1,000 feet below surface. Level 4, lesson 4, do your depth work. And flock, because they collectively change direction abruptly to keep humans from following them and move thousands of miles to stay current with the ocean. Lesson 5, be ready to be transformed. Gratitude to my oceans of love, my expansive family in all directions, all mothers of all genders and ages and times. Thank you for nourishing me and holding me accountable in more ways than I can name. Ashe and amen, my friends. Ashe and amen.
Thank you, QuianaDenae, for such a moving service. Friends, if you are going on with your day, Lovely, Isabella, forgive me for stepping on your keys. Thank you, QuianaDenae, for such a moving service. Friends, if you are going on with your day, please enjoy it. If you would like to stay on after the service, QuianaDenae will join us during our fellowship hour for responses to her service. She asked us many challenging questions, and I would be delighted to join you all in considering some of them.